bad news is that summer is almost over. The good news is that I'm going to show you today how to stop your convertible top from leaking once the rain starts. And the first step you want to do is a walk around of your car. You're going to check the rubber molding all the way around on both sides to make sure that there are no rips or tears. You don't want any debris or tiny sticks in there. They're going to hold it open so water will leak in. And you don't want any gaps anywhere around here. And there we see a problem already. This little rubber cover is what slides up against that area, so you can replace the molding, but you've got that little cap to make it easier, and then it'll seal up the extra space. We'll get back to that in a second. I want to talk about this top area here. I'll step back a little so you can see where I am on the car. Now your car might be slightly different. This is a Z3 obviously, but every car is going to have a drain hole right at the top of the door frame, even non-convertible cars, but this is especially important if you got a rag top. You want water, any water that gets in that area, you want it to drain down the side here. You want it to come out in your hood area, and then it'll drip down at the bottom of the car. Any type of sticks, debris, or anything else is going to block that up, and of course, if that happens, it's going to come inside of your wheel well and pool up down at the floor of your vehicle, which nobody wants. Now, some people have talked about this area where all of your rubber molding sort of meets together. You want to seal that up so water doesn't pool in that area as well and end up dripping down inside. And with that in mind, you're going to need a tube of rubber sealant. I chose to use Gasket Maker because I know that it lasts long, it's tough, and it's not going anywhere. But take your pick. Lots of products like that out there. So what you want to do is put a little dab of sealant there on this area. Scrape off any excess with something like a credit card and let it dry for 24 hours. There you go. Even though I haven't seen the issue myself, it's better safe than sorry, right? So it's worth taking care of. Okay, so back to this gap. I'm going to tell you what happened with me. I noticed one day after washing my car that I had a nice little pool of water right behind the driver's seat. And so I did a walk around of the vehicle like we're talking about, and I discovered that little grommet there was actually above that little plastic cover that slides back and forth, and that's where water was leaking in. And who knows how many times back there behind the seat that water had pooled up before I discovered it. And that's why, and this goes with anything, you want to do a walk around inspection of your vehicle just to find if there's any loose nuts or bolts, any loose screws, or something like this gap that I found. Catch it before it becomes a huge problem, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to be easy to fix. So that's step number 1 of making your convertible waterproof. Step number 2 is checking the mating surfaces of your doors and windows. Make sure they close all the way so that no water can get in that way. Now step number 3, let's talk about the actual fabric that your convertible top is made out of. When it comes from the factory, it's going to have a waterproof treatment on it. That works great, but what few people realize is that only lasts you 2-3 years. You're going to have to retreat that top, and I'm going to show you how to do that coming up next. So you want to start off with a nice brush. You want bristles stiff enough so they can clean the fabric, but not so stiff that they damage it. You also want a brush that doesn't lose its bristles in the top, because you're going to have to clean that up before you apply the sealant. Now I use this rag top convertible top cleaner. Works pretty well, but there's others out there, so take your pick. Now what do I use to actually restore the waterproof sealant? I like 303 Fabric Guard. I did my research, and this seems to be the best. but of course you always want to do your own research. Now I'll tell you, I got about 4 coats of this out of one bottle, and with each layer you want to brush in a different direction. So you can see right now I'm brushing back and forth. The next layer will be side to side, and you want to keep doing that until your bottle is empty. Just go ahead and use the whole thing. Depending on the size of your top, you may actually need more. And speaking of that, you don't want to wait until the sealant has worn completely off and the fabric starts soaking up water. For one thing, this industrial heavy-duty fabric can probably hold 2 or 3 gallons worth of water, and you can see that over time that's going to soak right through and end up making a mess. And the other piece of that is the longer you wait, the more that it's going to take in order to get the job done. I've heard people with large convertible, say Cadillac tops, that needed 2 or 3 bottles to actually make this work because they waited too long. So another thing I want to talk about is making sure you clean that top well before you even start spraying this on, because whatever muck and dirt is there when you apply the sealant, it's just going to be there forever. So get that nice and clean, opposite strokes as you apply it, and you're good to go. Now, one important step: as soon as you're done applying that sealant, you want to go around your entire vehicle and clean off any overspray that you find. You don't want to leave that on the glass, because I actually did that once and it took hours of scrubbing with rubbing alcohol in order to remove that from the glass once it dried. So clean that off your glass, clean it off any rubber molding, any piping that you have, because like any chemical, it can eat through it. And also be careful with any rubbing alcohol you use, because that will actually strip off a layer. And you can see right there, I'd already wiped this down before, and you can see a little black mark from how the chemical sort of ate through the rubber there. And that was immediately after. So this is good stuff. It's important that you use it, but just make sure you clean up after yourself as soon as possible, because the longer you wait, the harder the cleanup's going to be. Okay, to give you a little perspective, here's some footage from the night before I applied the sealant, and you can see it looks like it's beating up a little, but especially on the top, after just a few seconds it starts to soak in, and that's definitely bad. So let's look at the after video. This is the next morning. You can see my neighbor's cat has already slept on my top, leaving cat hair all over the place. But the sealant should help with that. And I poured about a quart of water on, and it beats up pretty well. So let's go get the hose and see what happens. Okay, so I've been spraying for a couple minutes before I started filming. And even after several minutes of spraying water on, it's actually beating. I was a little worried about some of the water pooling up, but as I spray it away, I can see that it hasn't soaked in. It's just beating and sitting on top of the fabric, which is exactly what we wanted. So let's do a recap. First, we walked around the vehicle. We inspected the molding to make sure no water could leak in anywhere there. We checked the doors and windows and the top in its up position, and made sure all those surfaces were mating correctly without any gaps, so water couldn't get in there. Last but not least, we treated the fabric of the rack top itself to make sure that water doesn't soak in. And that process needs to be repeated every several years, depending on whether or not your vehicle is garaged or you have a car cover on it. Then, of course, the treatment will last longer. All right, so if you found this video useful or helpful at all, do me a big favor. Hit that like button below. That lets me know if I'm on the right track and people like seeing the videos I'm making. Also, if you want to see more do-it-yourself stuff like motorcycle modifications, car modifications, other products reviewed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You can check out my other videos. And with that, I'm out. Thanks for watching.